CRA. I think Mr. Cortado really kind of blew everyone away with his presentation. It was really unique because it wasn't a super formal presentation, but he did take a moment, took about maybe 10-15 minutes and talked to the room. And then he actually brought samples of what the glaze and texture and everything was going to look like in the colors, and it was beautiful. Everybody was really, really wowed by him, and so we're really excited. A little update since then. We did some digging, we talked to the building official, and because it is not a habitable structure, there is no building permit process. So that being said, he in theory, his concrete guy can now basically start right now if he wants to. But you know, to make sure, because we are prone to some really gnarly storms in the summertime and fall, his contractors, and he did select the local contractor for the concrete. He went and met with him right after our meeting and selected him, and they're going to move forward. And he's going to work with us, give us a site plan, and just so the building official has an idea of like the rebar and type of equipment and things he's going to use to fix these concrete columns. So we'll kind of work together on that. But he believes his concrete guy will probably get started in the next 2 weeks. So it's going to be really soon. We had a meeting the day before yesterday. I mean, it's running together. To talk about landscape in-house. So I went out there with our Parks and Recreation team. I also took our ADA coordinator as well. So we were able to kind of walk the site, figure out exactly where we can have ramps go up to make the entire site accessible, figure out what materials we're going to be able to use. We have a landscape contractor that is already under contract with the Parks and Recreation Department, so there will not have to be some long 30 to 45 day process to find a landscape contractor because we already have one. And we're going to, once we get the site plan from the concrete fabricators, we will then take that to the landscapers and they will create us a landscape plan to go with it. And so I know it's been a while to get to this point, but I feel like the point now that we've gotten to, things are kind of, things are going rapidly at this point, so we're really excited about that. So I just wanted to kind of update you guys on where that is. And once he does get out there and get started putting the concrete in, when we have that schedule, I'll let everyone know so we can all, you know, go by and love them when they're out there putting up the concrete towers. So.
And so what was the, thank you for that, what was the general schedule from Mr. Cortado? Did he have some thought if he gets started in the next couple of weeks? Are we talking a couple months or?
So our goal is to tie a big unveiling with FinFest, which is in September. So, I mean, realistically, if they get concrete up in 2 weeks, I mean, I think it'll be done well before the FinFest. But if it's going to kind of be close to that FinFest timeframe, because FinFest also is all about preserving our ocean and the ecosystems in the ocean and educating people, and a lot of what his sculpture promotes is the same. So we were kind of wanting to tie them to some type of an event. So September at the latest, but it could be as soon as, you know, midsummer.
So if it was closer to FinFest, would they cover the monument or cover it and then have an unveiling or something like that? Would that be appropriate?
Probably, I think that was my understanding.
Yeah, that's a cool idea.
Yeah, I think that was his intent, kind of the way, because once we really kind of started talking through things, the technical aspect will be, they'll get the concrete columns up, so the concrete columns will actually be sitting on the dirt. So they'll go in, put their rebar in, do everything they need to do, but then the rest of the site will be dirt, and it will just be concrete structures. The city, we will then come in behind that and landscape and get all of the landscaping, get all of the flooring in, get, you know, the ribbon curve, everything in that we need to get done.
Possible lighting, wiring.
Oh, that, I'm glad you said that. We went out to the site and we were able to, we weren't sure what kind of irrigation and electrical we had still, and we still have irrigation, we still have electrical, and they both still work. And they're at the site already, so that's gonna save a lot of time and money as well. So we will then come in, do our part, and then the last step will be he will come back up from Miami and then he will actually affix all of the tile work and everything to the columns. Once he does that, like you said, if it's very close to FinFest, then yeah, I would think he would probably want to kind of cover them and then have an unveiling at FinFest.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And on a budget perspective, remind me, the landscaping is within his budget or the city's budget or how?
Within the CRA downtown budget. So his budget is going strictly to just art. Yep.
And just to follow up on the mandate, he did send you some information
Yep.
on that.
So it'd be a little bit of a process, but it's not something that's impossible.
Is that something that would be attached to rewriting the codes right now that you would do? Or
Possibly.
you think so? Yeah,
Yeah,
you would
it's
try to
possible.
work that into rewriting the codes?
Yeah, now that we're actively in that process right now,
Right.
it's a good time as
Right.
opposed to coming back. Nothing says we can't come back later after we, if we can't get it together in time for this kind of round of LDC updates, then we'll, look at something in the future.
Plus, if we have the installations that we already do have and a beautiful sculpture, I mean, that's kind of an incentive for businesses to see what is and what can be
Sure.
happening.
And I can tell you, like today, we had a meeting this morning, internal, to talk about the potential public-private partnership on this parking lot across the road right here. And we've got a list of like 10 to 12, requirements that the city and CRA would require of a developer partner. And one of the things is public art. And that was, we had already set those requirements before this ordinance even came up to have public art on new development. So it's definitely something we're looking into. My goal is to do some research, talk internally, kind of figure out, gauge where everyone is at on having that
Right.
ordinance in place. And then once we get a feeling for that, then bring that back to maybe the next meeting of this committee and kind of actually really talk through the process. And
No, he did reach out to me to mention that he has more information coming to you. And, he said that he sent you some, but he's got more that he wants to send you.
I was gonna say, I've gotten a couple of emails from him since then, so I've definitely gotten a lot of info from him and his team. He's actually, the week before he came here, he was at Harvard giving a guest lecture, and then this week he's in Vancouver getting some award, and his schedule's crazy.
Pretty amazing, I mean,
Yeah.
super approachable.
He was just genuine, authentic, I mean, you could tell he's the real deal.
Yeah, yeah, it was very cool.
You guys did a good job picking him. Yeah.
And it seems like he had a lot of resources available, and obviously he's already started on all this project.
Yep.
And it was great, brought, up-to-date pictures of the stuff.
Yeah, I liked that he brought real samples that we could actually feel and hold and pass around, and the actual colors that he was using, he brought samples of those that he brought up from his actual studio. So it was it just kind of gave everyone a whole new perspective on the piece and what it's going to look and actually feel like, and everybody's really excited about it.
I wanted to keep a couple.
I know, well, the little ones, the little circular pieces, he had these little circle tiles, and there were holes in them because he hangs them, on a wall in his studio, but we were both like, can we get a necklace? It's really cool.
I'm sorry, I missed it.
He'll be back,
Yes,
We get to see all of it.
he'll be back.
And I think on his budget, he had the flooring, part of his budget has the flooring. Not that he has, stated his budget, if the city's gonna help him.
So, and what he and I talked about, sort of bouncing ideas around were, okay, if we're already gonna go in and be putting down the base and the foundation, but he has this money already allocated, then do we come back and he provide us with 2 concrete benches, and then we trim the concrete of those benches in the same mosaic work that'll be on the sculptures, and so kind of bringing in other elements to the piece, since he'd already allocated funds somewhere else. So I think we're gonna be able to make up for it with some additions to the site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other old business or any other questions on that?
No,
New business?
I do not have anything formal for you guys right now. Nope.
Did you know what they were talking about, the man making?
No.
Well, it was something that they've done where a private, developer has to include a certain percentage, like 1.5% of the overall development, and spend it on some type of art.
On art.
Art. And then
That's exciting.
Bard and Dave,
It really
everybody
is.
has actually wrote that in. So that they're gonna put something on city land with private money, that a certain percentage is gonna be.
Yeah, they already have.
Art,
I mean,
wall.
that creates a destination for not only artists to become interested in submitting their work, but people to come here to see the art that is happening.
I mean, that's almost like the CRA
from now, you know, I mean, it'll be
Change.
just,
Yeah.
it'll,
Well, it's just going to be part of, when you're gonna build your, that, you know, we're gonna have to do that.
we're starting it.
Right, that's fantastic, great. Moving on?
Yeah. That part.
All right, now we get to talk about some priorities for fiscal year 2025. So I took a little bit, made a quick PowerPoint just to kind of, I'm a visual learner, I like to see things, and I know we talk about different things that we've seen places a lot, so I kind of tried to attach some photos. But so really quick, these are some of the goals. I went back and looked at some of our previous meetings, and this is a very condensed and watered down version, but some of the goals that I've heard for this next fiscal year were to find projects specifically targeted towards local artists. We've done, our 2 murals that were, quite frankly, they were massive. And the more I've learned about public art is the murals of that size are not always common. You rarely see them that large. So focusing on some smaller mural projects, again, that we can focus on local artists. I know a lot has come up with partnering with various, schools or local organizations to have some type of a partnership or some type of a festival or an event where we've kind of partnered with other art organizations. And then utilizing the existing pool of candidates that we previously received between the 3 calls to artists. We've probably got close to, it's gotta be close to 300 different art candidates for sculptures and paintings. That also makes it a quicker process because as we know, the state statute allows us to just commission artwork. We do not have to go through these typical procurement procedures. And then also we talked a lot about temporary art installations during the slower season on some of the areas that are not being utilized right now. Does anybody have anything else that I've missed on these goals? And if so, please let me know.
Especially the temporary installations,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Okay. All right, so I know we talked about doing this in this fiscal year, and we likely still will, but I wanted to add it just in case we didn't get to it. We talked a lot about these murals on the 3 public restrooms within the downtown. These are examples in other cities that they have done. So again, we're not reinventing the wheel here. These are very common. People do a lot of different type of murals. I have talked to our Parks and Rec department. They're all for us painting these bathrooms. Obviously, we'll still have to designate via these doors that these are bathrooms, and people don't just think it's a storage building. We want people to still know that it is a restroom space. So if we do not accomplish that in this fiscal year, this will be probably one of the top priorities rolling into the next. This was something that came up with partnering with local schools and other organizations. When I was at the Florida Redevelopment Conference, the lady that I actually did the public art presentation with, her art committee had done storm drain murals, and they had partnered with the local high school art program. And what they did, this one in the bottom left-hand corner that says "Keep Clean for Downstream," they did a huge campaign educating people on, just because you're so far inland, what you were putting into this, don't throw your trash in here, don't litter, because what you're putting into the storm drain is going to end up in our oceans, it's going to end up in our rivers, and that was their big. And this one over here on the right, that drains to river, that was one of hers. And I know with, what we've got Beaches Go Green, which is a wonderful organization. We've got FinFest, again, which is educating people on the importance of the ocean and the ecosystem within the ocean and protecting our beaches. And then with this sculpture we have coming, that also kind of follows the same tune of educating people. So I thought it could be a really cool opportunity to potentially do some of these storm drain murals. And again, partnering with the schools. This one is a personal favorite of Heather and myself. We've been to several places that they are painting their crosswalks. Obviously, this is not happening on First Street because it's all pavers. But on Second Street, some of our crosswalks the painted stripes are fading. We're having to repaint them regularly anyways, and this could be a really fun opportunity for local muralists to, like we talked before, having a Saturday event where it's a paint out event. We can designate a crosswalk area where you can do 4 different of these. But this is something we would really like to see maybe in the fall when it's not scalding hot and the asphalt's not 200 degrees. Yes, sir.
Those are great ideas, and we could maybe even, utilize that idea in the roundabouts.
Yeah,
But I was wondering here too, how does the artist get that done with a traffic situation that has to be obviously
Yeah, so we were,
rerouted or
yeah.
detoured or something?
and that's why it would have to be a one section. I mean, we're not gonna go paint every crosswalk on Second Street because that's just not realistic. That would be a nightmare for everyone, especially our police
That was a
department.
great
We would have
idea.
to
I love that.
deal with angry people being rerouted. Every time I bring up stuff like this, I always look to our police representative in the audience. But we would have to be very cautious. We would have to, I personally would like to, if we find a weekend or a time frame, we know we're gonna do this in our next fiscal year, be able to put that information out well in advance. I mean, I'm not talking a week, like weeks, if not a month or more in advance, just so everyone is aware, because I mean, even personally, there's nothing worse than having a route planned, and then you get there, and it's like, great, like, why are you painting, you know, we want it to be an enjoyable, fun thing, we don't want it to be a nuisance to people. So that would be a big part on staff's end, would just be to educate people on, hey, this is coming, here's what we're doing, and kind of build up the hype and excitement, so people aren't annoyed that you have to go around the block to get somewhere.
I mean, you did it in San Marco.
Yeah.
Which
Yep.
is way more difficult to navigate than that.
Very true, that is
They're a
big.
hospital, you know, I mean, so it can definitely be done.
It's doable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, it would be kind of a one section thing, like I said, we're not gonna go and shut down all of Second Street so we can paint, it would be a very small section, but again, we could tack it on to, you know, the same weekend as, or a weekend before an event, so these are getting done, or we can make it an art, you know, weekend, we have these 4 local artists come out and help us pick your favorite by, you know, whatever it may be, but we could try to make it more of a community event, so that way people aren't as inclined to be upset about having to close the intersection on Second Street.
Isn't there also an area, at the end of, Beach Boulevard near the lifeguard station that's pretty expansive, could be,
That beach drop-off zone area.
yeah.
I don't know, and this, I just haven't done my homework on the roundabouts because I hadn't thought of that. I don't see why it couldn't be done, but again, I'm not, public safety, that's not my expertise. That would be something I would wanna talk to police, fire marshal, and everyone, because what I would hate to see happen is we come in and we paint an area like that where you're supposed to be able to park an emergency vehicle or a fire truck, and then now we mark this up with all this pretty stuff, but it doesn't designate like, hey, this is no drop off, and hey, this is, you know, fire parking only. So I would want to kind of go back and do some homework on that before we dove too deep into that, which I'm happy to do. I'll talk to our fire marshal.
Yeah, I actually had that one on my list, and there is just that center part. You
Okay,
know,
yeah.
We had talked about putting art in, and then we were like, well, we can't do anything that's dimensional, because, so I mean, even if we could just do
Okay.
that center part.
I think the center part would be a whole lot easier. Yeah, that would be much easier to get a green light than, yeah, okay.
But are there other restrictions on, you know, what you can and cannot do in a crosswalk? I mean, other than, in each of these, well, the middle one not so much, but the ones on the left and the right still have the white lines.
So everyone, yeah, that I talked to, they still have to
Inside
designate.
the lines?
Yeah, basically, and it still has to be designated. So if it was just a mural that kind of, sorry, y'all. If it was just a mural that is kind of bleeding out to the roads, that's obviously gonna be a safety hazard. So we would still have to, we would go in and have those barrier lines painted in very clearly that this is still the crosswalk, and then whatever part is could not go outside of those lines. Be like a little color in the book.
Rather than the guitar, the next to the guitar.
Yeah. That one would, yeah, that would be, he painted outside the lines, he would be in trouble here. So this is unique, I haven't even shown Heather this yet because we got caught tied up before this meeting. So this was kind of one of my off the wall things. We talked about tons of temporary art installations, and I know we have far better ideas, than this. But something that we hear a lot of from our CRA is how unhappy they are with construction fencing. They hate the way it looks, they hate that it's blighted looking, it's ugly, and it's like, well, we don't have a choice, we have to fence off active construction and job sites. So something I found, and I was talking to other CRA staff across the state, is they'll have, again, local artists or the schools, they come in and they use yarn or different types of materials, and they literally just decorate construction fences. It's temporary, it doesn't last long, it's not very expensive materials, you know, we're not leaving this up for 10 years. But I just thought this was a really cool idea for some temporary artwork, especially because we do have a lot of projects coming downtown. I know it seems like we're built up, but we've got a lot coming. And then these are some more, and I think these were more in line with things we had talked about. You know, we had talked about the glowing surfaces, that's kind of that bottom picture. The top one, I know that's cactuses, brainstorming and getting kind of concrete ideas in place of what would we like to see if we're gonna do a temporary art installation, because we haven't done that yet. Do we wanna go back to cafe and issue a formal call where we kind of give parameters on, here's our goals, here's our ideas, here's the 10 days, 20 days, however long you have this space available, and, you know, maybe we issue another call, and get ideas, because this is a very different type of artist. This isn't necessarily our muralists, and this isn't necessarily the sculptors like Xavier Cortada, who are doing these big concrete structures. Some of these exhibits, in my research, I found the artist has a website where they literally have traveling exhibits that they have. It's basically the same thing, and they go from town to town. So maybe we issue a call looking for something like that, but I know this was a really hot topic.
Would that be, if you set that up at the cafe, would a temporary installation financially be, obviously it wouldn't benefit the artist as the same.
It depends, I mean,
permanent
because
structure.
if they already
there wouldn't
have
be-
it, like they already have the pieces, like for example, they have these
Yeah.
massive inflatable coral things, but they're not inflatable like a balloon that's gonna blow away. They're very unique, and they kind of set up these weird structures. But the group, like those cactuses, for example, that travels around the United States, so they already have the pieces made up. So when they're coming, other than having to have, you know,
So how do you
labor.
compensate, I guess, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to get with that.
Yeah.
How do you compensate the artist? So you reach out in cafe,
Mhm.
how do you compensate a temporary?
I mean, really the same way we would do a permanent one, it would just be
Is that right?
substantially less, because it's gonna be less in materials. And, you know, in the call, we would put, you know, we have this site, and we want you here from the 1st to the 15th. These are kind of the parameters we have in place, these are the rules, whatever rules we put in place on them, and then we say, you know, this is the amount, we're funding, whether it's 5,000, 10,000, however much, and
There's quite a few artists that deal strictly with temporary
Yep.
installs.
There are.
Inflatables and, yeah.
I mean, if
Maybe
we
like
do
a
that,
fence covering, like big long
Yeah.
wraps or
Yes.
something that you put up on a fence that
Yeah.
has like
like a
a
custom-
museum or something,
Yeah.
with just
Yeah.
pieces of art on, that look like you're walking by a museum.
So that would
There's some of
definitely
those
want
places like in New York, except for they're building, they put up some.
Scaffolding, yeah,
They
they,
walk up.
yeah.
well, the
Decorated.
Jacksonville Zoo just had a fabulous temporary exhibit. I mean, it was there for several months, and it was probably way out of our budget, but it was a temporary exhibit that an artist, they came in and they set it up, and it was there for a few months, and it was, I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. So there's definitely a market for that, and there's actually a section, if you go on cafe and you're searching for calls, there are calls out there just for temporary art. So I know that there's a platform for it, and there's a group of artists that are looking for that.
Did we just answer our question? We would definitely send it out to cafe to get that
I would think
well-rounded.
so, I mean, but again, if there was something better, or you guys had a better idea or a better resource,
Oh, that sounds great.
um,
What downside we have?
To get the
Yeah.
focus
it's
reach.
worked so far.
Yeah.
I mean,
Worked for it, yeah.
really.
Yeah.
and then, like Heather just said, moving forward, then at that point, once we kind of go through our first call for temporary installations, we now have a pool of artists. And again, because it's public art, it falls into the same procurement process, regulated by the state statute, so.
Yeah, it seems like if we're gonna issue a call, either leave the date open.
Okay.
And put a time period, or pick several dates.
Mm-hmm,
And I would recommend that we do a budget range,
okay,
so that we get
Correct.
some variety of, and then that way, if we do wanna do a temporary one, we can sort of move quickly, like, hey, you know, if something comes up and we wanna tack onto an event, or,
yeah,
that's, you know,
And we
a
could-
short time
We
period,
could
we
also do
could-
several in a row.
we
That's a
know
good
how much
idea.
something costs.
Yeah.
So we could just call them up and say, hey, we've got this date available,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
enter
like
a
A few
call,
months or
are
a
you
few years
available?
or whatever.
You
It's-
know, Yeah,
Yeah.
cause then we could get some variety and
Yeah.
size, even if we, you know, establish a space where we think it's gonna be. You know, maybe a smaller space opens up and we're like, oh, we'd love to put one there, we can look back and sort
Yeah.
of see.
Alright, we wanna wrap the fence where Baja used to be, you know, so that there's a walkway and fence coming. What?
It's a
Yeah.
yard bomb.
yeah, put some yarn up there, make it pretty.
I mean, just to say we wanted some kind of muralist fence covering or something that matched Ernesto's or something. And put that, we would have, see what that costs.
Yeah,
Because if somebody would be digitally printing it on some kind of mesh and putting it up there, what does that run? $30 a square foot? We
Yeah.
want some fancy wrap mesh all the way around this fence. Put that out there, how much does that cost? You know, I mean, somebody might, we would have to have the article right there.
And one nice
Like you
thing.
say, we would know a range of what we could score.
Yeah. And another nice thing about having the contacts that we have through, you know, the redevelopment agencies across the state is I can probably reach out there. They have a forum, that is a members forum. I can probably reach out on there and say, has anyone done this? And I'm fairly certain that there will be several communities that have done that. And then I can also kind of piggyback their process and not have to reinvent the wheel. Because if they figured out a better way to get those decorative fence wraps or whatever, then, you know, why do we need to go through all these extra steps? If, hey, they figured it out, this works, they have this pool of artists, then we can, you know, just
Somebody already has it,
Yep.
they just come and put it up.
Exactly. Okay. And then the big one for FY '25, the pier entryway. So again, this one's kind of unique because we want it to be welcoming, we want it to feel beachy, we do want it to be substantial in size, but with all that being said, something to, you know, be mindful of. I even catch myself getting overly excited, and then I have to remember, you know, this has to still accommodate for emergency vehicles to get access to the pier. So even though we have the wide pier space, along the boardwalk, you know, we've got to be very careful when planning some type of entryway piece. I know it's called out for in the plans, it's called out for, you know, the pier design plans, but, this one I think is going to end up being a little trickier than maybe even initially thought, because we have to make sure we're not encroaching into that boardwalk space to then prohibit emergency vehicles from being able to get to people on the boardwalk.
Are we gonna be able to do that before we get the actual pier redevelopment
Probably.
done? Because
Just to be completely candid, probably so.
after seeing, funny enough, after seeing the bowling alley and some other, work at Kronk and Duke, is there anything to keep the city from hiring somebody like Kronk and Duke to actually design an entrance to the pier? I mean, look what they've done to the bowling alley. I think that's Kronk and Duke, isn't it? You guys.
Well, I don't know who the artist was, I've actually been trying to find out, if
Yeah.
anybody knows, let me know.
I thought it was the same, I know it was Kronk and Duke did Sunrise, did the renovation of Sunrise Surf Shop.
Yeah, they may have done the bowling alley, I'm not sure, I don't recall,
I thought that was the architectural firm that did the bowling alley. But I guess my point is there anything to keep us from hiring an architectural firm to actually
That gets
design
tricky.
the entrance
Be a
to the
gray
bowling alley?
area.
I mean,
With certain parameters that
Yeah.
need to be.
The way the
which
statute
we did
reads,
consider. Sculpture.
and I'm not the city attorney,
Right.
but the way the statute reads, we do have a great city attorney that we just started, and he's wonderful, so I will, go pester him on this as well. But the statute is very explicit that the only thing exempt from the standard procurement process is art. It's not the creation of art, it's not the design of the art, it's just the artwork itself. So if we want to do a piece that is a sculpture, if there were gonna be any engineering involved, which especially in that location, I would think there's gonna have to be, just because of its proximity to the elements, to the wind, to the waves, to the storms, everything, it would almost have to be one of those things that we factored in a little bit like Xavier's contract, where we know that amount is a lot more because we knew there were gonna have to be some construction elements to his project. I would think the best way would be to get our ideas together, issue a call for that piece, kind of figure out the design theme we wanna go for, and then make sure in the budget we allocate enough money, and then it would be the artist's responsibility to get architecture and engineering involved, because if we were gonna do it, the way the statute reads to me is that we would then have to issue a request for proposals, that would have to be on the street for 30 to 45 days.
Yeah.
Then you would have to have a city staff review it, and then we would have to talk, and so it becomes a much longer procurement process than just hiring someone to do art.
It would be a, part of the criteria,
Yes,
as that artist would have to submit architectural, you know,
or even if they don't
Design.
submit them at the time of the call, it's up to them. It becomes, we award the contract, just like we did with Xavier. We award the sculpture contract to you, we awarded it based on your design. And then from that point forward, from your design on a piece of paper until a structure that is actually in the ground, it is up to you to handle architecture, engineering, contractors. And then we're not violating anything in state statute, and it's not gray, that's very black and white at that point, because that is a private artist handling his installation.
what's the budget for this pier item?
We don't have one yet.
I'm thinking of something, you know, large, fit under, but something that
And we have to
spans.
remember, we can't affix to the pier either. That's the other thing.
What,
Really?
yeah, what
The
are our
pier's not ours.
restrictions?
Oh.
It says that Jacksonville owns the
Correct.
pier.
Yeah.
So we can't, in order to do something actually to the pier, it has to go through Jacksonville. They have to approve it, correct? City of Jacksonville, because that's their pier.
Well, I mean, the property up to the pier is
Yes.
Jack's Beach.
Correct.
And
So as long as we don't put
our-
anything
our-
on the
Archway
pier.
would be
We're good.
right there.
So no architects, no engineers, can't touch the pier.
And
Now
just-
go.
But remember, we have a pool of artists that submitted for our first
Right.
sculpture. I mean, how many did we get, 80-something?
Almost 100.
Might be something you guys wanna consider taking another look at and
Yeah,
seeing
a lot of
if
things
anything pops up that would, you think might be worth.
I think there were several in there that could be a really
Yeah.
good fit
a good
because,
starting point instead of going back to the cafe.
yeah, because a lot of, and I still have all the submissions that we received and all the portfolios. And I will say, you know, the entryway sculpture that Xavier is doing it's very elegant, it's very serious, it's educational, it's beautiful, and I think it's an absolutely perfect piece to bring you into downtown. I don't know that the piece of that same nature would work for a pier entryway. I think you almost have to do a 180 and go to the opposite end of that art spectrum where it's whimsical, it's fun, it's
Yep.
beachy, it's exciting.
Right.
And I
Kind of
remember
what I
there
was
were
thinking.
a lot of artists that had that
You could
style
walk
art
under and look
that just
up.
didn't work for the first sculpture, that might would work a lot better for this. So maybe between now and for our next meeting, if, you know, we really wanna hone in on, kind of the goals of this today were for you guys to kind of provide me direction on, okay, what do we really wanna start whittling down on, and really get a game plan in place, so when the fiscal year ends and we roll into FY '25, we are ready to go day one, no downtime. Something I can do is pull back out all of those submissions for the sculptures and kind of put together a presentation again, and we can kind of view those in a different mindset, whereas again, with our first sculpture, it was more serious, this one is a little more whimsical and fun, and we can maybe look at those again.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely some that have like a rainbow, metal rainbow.
Yes.
Metal dolphin or something.
I remember that really pretty pastel colored coral. I mean, maybe not that specific piece, but just that artist style. That one always stuck out to me, those really beautiful, vibrant colors and
Mhm.
big, kind of over the top.
Happy.
Yeah,
Entrance.
yeah. That's the word I was looking for, happy.
I'm thinking we're gonna have to think of something that's more walk around freestanding, because we're probably gonna get like a spot that's at the corner of where the motel is and the city property and the boardwalk, and we get 15 feet in each direction, and that's our little spot. I mean, that's just what I imagine is gonna happen, because
Yeah.
the seawalk is already there, the city has X number of feet between First Street and the entrance to the pier, and we get a little corner over here where they're gonna put the little marker that's already out there next to it or something. I'm just.
That's a really good point, and something else I can
That's what we
do.
have to look for, not like some
Yeah,
walk under entryway, I
Right.
don't think that's gonna be.
Doable.
I think we're gonna
I
have to
agree.
think of something that you walk around that's freestanding with
I agree.
fencing, like you say, like our spot we already got the posters for.
I think something else I can do as well is I can pull kind of some aerial images of,
I mean,
Just the
that's what
area
it's
in
showing
general?
here.
and figure, yeah, well,
Just get a little spot.
yep,
We got.
and figure out exactly where we can go, and then even beyond that, I can work with, you know, police and fire and figure out what the preferred area would be, what would be easiest, what makes the most sense, and then exactly, we can go out and kind of measure off exactly what that footprint could potentially look like. So again, when we're looking at those artists, again, and their portfolios, we can also have in mind exactly the footprint that they would be working with.
Yeah, probably something like that. I'm afraid we're gonna have to be limited to
Yeah.
where we're allowed to put something.
Yeah, you're right.
Trey, bring in the facts, baby.
But that also helps hone
It's true. I didn't think of that.
what people might suggest,
Right.
rather than, oh, well, you didn't tell me that it couldn't be giant.
Yeah. I think we can go out and measure.
I know.
I'm just thinking that's, because I'm just being realistic. The sign's already there, all the papers are there,
Yeah.
you know, there's already a historical marker out there on the ship that got some off there and everything. There's only so much space, and it has to be something that,
By like 20 spaces, we can take a
most,
space.
some of those
to his point, but just because it's there, is there any way we can incorporate it or encroach
Modify.
to do our, whatever, I'm not saying we do an arch, but we wanna do an arch, then is there a way to?
Right, we get a little bit of both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, again, in theory, as long as it's gonna meet what's required for, wind gusts and how it's affixed and the, rebar we use, and if it's not, if we're talking an archway, okay, well now you're not talking something that's gonna be sticking out 10 feet, you're talking about a fixed space here and a fixed space on this side. I don't think it's impossible, but again, I don't wanna say one way or the other until I've talked to, our folks that handle safety, and then even our public works department, and, the people that would kind of be responsible for making sure this is maintained over at parks. I just wanna make sure whatever we start brainstorming is doable, because again, the last thing we wanna do is come up with this great idea, issue this call, or talk to these artists, and then our parks department's like, well, we can't maintain that, that's not gonna work, and then we have this beautiful piece that just
Right.
goes to
Doesn't
ground
happen.
after 2 years. We don't want that to happen, so I will pull together all the,
I know what it looked like there every day they were constructing the pier. It's not pretty.
yeah.
And they did take a lot of equipment through there and lay it all down there. And now the spring hill's done, and you can see kind of where the edges are,
Oh, yeah.
so I think we could figure out what we're.
And
allowed.
it doesn't have to necessarily, something Heather and I were kind of whispering back into up here was, it doesn't have to be physically on the boardwalk. There are other areas in that space it could potentially go, and like where people are gonna turn in and drop off, we could have something there. Our agreement with City of Jacksonville requires that we provide 100 spaces in that parking lot. We are a little bit over that. There could be a little leeway there on where we could put something. So we'll make sure, I'll, kind of pull some ideas, go out, get some pictures, get some footprints, make sure all the other departments have to be okay with where this would go or okay with it, and then that'll be quite a lengthy meeting. But I will pull together all of the necessary documents and get those to you guys well in advance, so then we can really kind of dive into that. So those were kind of the things that Heather and I could recall that we had talked about that would be kind of in the forefront of the next fiscal year and kind of focusing on those projects. What else did you guys have in mind? We kind of wanted to open the floor for your recommendations.
Well, we're talking about a sculpture for the pier, we're talking about the bathrooms, we're talking about crosswalks and other temporary things.
Yep.
Are we, gonna try to hone in on another, mural? What's next space that we'll target?
I don't know what would.
Are any of the alleys?
The
that
through,
are-
the throughways.
Are there any of the alleys that in the plan that are actually available?
Available, yes. City owned, no.
But yeah, the one between Surfer and the Surf Shop is in the art plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was working with the business owner or the building owner to see if they'd be interested in collaborating with the city on something. And the other one's across from the new mural behind the back of the shop, but there's no building there, so that one's probably a more long-term project. It's really the only alleyways I can think of.
The new donut shop guy wants to do something in the other.
So we had talked about expanding the facade grant program into allowing art, so the city would pay for art on private buildings. And we would want that to come through
Yes.
you guys, so that's something that we could look at, because the city itself is kind of out of walls to put art on. We can't put anything on City Hall.
Nope.
Trust me, we would love to, but we can't, so we have to find maybe some private opportunities for murals, and maybe we approach business owners, property owners, and see if they're interested.
And that could be even something that, staff could go, but even it could be one thing that like chairman, or if you're not, someone from the committee could even come with us and have those meetings. I feel like it's always nice whenever we have, if it's something council related, a council person's with us, or a CRA, whatever, that could be something that we could set up some meetings, kind of identify a couple of spaces that are private owned, and then a committee member could even come with us and have those conversations.
Like the dumpster enclosure around the Metropolitan,
Yes, that's called out in the plan.
but we don't own it, so we have to work with the building owner or property management, whoever's in charge of that.
Because I think if we could find one of those alleys or throughways, that would be an interesting place to sort of divide the space,
Okay.
pick a theme, and engage 4 or 5, whatever is appropriate for the length of the space, local artists.
Mm-hmm.
Give them
2 weeks ago, not this weekend, but last weekend, the New York Times had a little article on graffiti going on. I sort of says, did you guys, I don't know if you guys saw
I
that,
haven't.
but I grabbed the last 3 New York Times, which both my budget. So I don't have more than just 3 copies. But here's, these are just some of the
Yeah.
you guys in the murals, and what happens is, when they start putting murals and things around the city, the people wanna move into the city, people wanna move into the building, they literally took buildings that were empty,
It enriches the
dilapidated,
area,
they
the
took
landscape.
murals, the murals got, attention, and all of a sudden you got all these businesses wanting to come into the murals.
Yeah.
So, we're in front of the game on that. I mean, if we keep moving in this direction, it's a really good article about,
We need to.
about murals and graffiti, it's not just graffiti.
Yeah.
But there was definitely an economic, return for the investment.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so exciting, which
I
is so
think,
exciting.
something else that I thought has been really unique and really cool to see is that when we first started talking, about these murals, you know, a lot of board members or council members or even people in the public were concerned, oh, somebody's gonna tag it with graffiti, and, you know, there was the thing that, you know, we were told, and we hoped that this was accurate, that, you know, a lot of times, even though it's graffiti and it may not look like art to everyone, but these graffiti artists are a type of artist, and they are not going to tag someone else's work typically.
No, they want their own wall.
And I'm not gonna say it,
They do.
but that was what we were told, and then we were, and it's,
So far, so we can,
it's gonna be thumbs up, that's all I'm gonna say. I don't wanna jinx anything.
So we still have the ability to hire some of the artists that we didn't hire.
Oh, yeah,
correct? We still have that ability,
Yep,
and so for the mural.
quite easily, actually, I mean, because we already have talked, some of them we've already interviewed, we've already talked to, we have access to their full portfolio they submitted, and again, we can just commission a
These
piece.
were just down in South Florida, then,
Mhm.
which
Oh, I like that.
were really cool. I'm gonna give them to you, but I mean, this was just down in South Florida, and just this kind of a surfer mural.
Mhm.
Could be one of our artists, could do that on any wall,
Yeah.
any wall. And then, I'm not trying to take over or anything, I'm just.
No, please.
Do it.
And then, this was what about our water tower? Our water tower has the little, the little lifeguard stand on it. What they did is they took metal and they actually put a beach scene around.
That's crazy.
And why couldn't we do that? Can you imagine driving down 3rd Street, looking up at the water tower and seeing basically a beach scene to make you happy?
Oh,
Let's go back
propane
there.
tank for your
So-
barbecue.
These are not, this is a tank, but it made me think of the water tower.
We've got some history on that water tower for you.
And so, you know what? I'm not gonna.
So
I'm
like,
not
these
gonna-
are great ideas, and like, as you guys walk around downtown, that's the kind of stuff that you should look for, you know, what is a canvas? I mean, we look at
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
it's like, what can we make? The
I'm
green
gonna-
utility boxes.
I'm
for
gonna
example.
submit these as evidence
Okay,
to
perfect.
the council.
We'll take it.
So this was just on metal that made me think of the water tower.
Yeah.
To do like a little scene all the way around, and if it was big enough, you would see it.
Yeah.
You guys saw that, all right? And then this, one of our artists could do that.
As with the water towers now, they
Are you
put
on
those
here?
cellular,
They're
a cellular phone structure.
You know, it's in Boca Raton.
I mean,
So they pay for that.
they pay for that, but
But
they're using one of the highest points in the landscape to put their cellular towers.
But yeah, there's
And it just,
canvases.
we
now.
want
we all have
Art.
this, okay? So that's your, and then we get to that. There were 2 more.
of course they do,
If I
but
could.
it's
Yeah.
aesthetically
Exactly.
null and void.
So this was another idea, they just had, in one of the cliffs, they just had view. So you go to a cliff, and it's just view, it's a place where you view, it just had the words view. So why couldn't we have a place where it says ocean? And it just says ocean. Why couldn't we do that? And it becomes a spot where people go and have their picture taken, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. That says ocean instead of view, so that's a thought. And then this was the South Beach. South Beach has done
Oh, yeah.
remember the old Love? Remember when
Yeah.
the book came out?
We do love those.
Whatever.
Yeah,
And they
yeah,
had, and
The rubber band.
submit these as evidence. As something else possible
Yeah.
for Jack's
Yeah, I
Beach.
love that.
For Jack's Beach, and again, that's not a big footprint, because it's vertical and it's bright. And that's why that picture that I submitted to you, that I couldn't find, we couldn't
Oh,
find,
yeah.
I think that's better.
Yeah,
To tell you the truth, I think this is much better than that.
This is the kind of stuff people like to take pictures with.
Yeah.
You know, they love to
Good.
take pictures
Absolutely.
of and with art.
Yeah,
It's
it's happy.
happy.
It's a happy place.
It's a happy, and then I just had some, just like, why couldn't we do I did write happy, actually, why couldn't we do a dog sculpture somewhere? What's to keep us from doing, like, just different types of sculpture, you know, well, why couldn't we do a dog? I mean, a puppy or something.
Yeah.
Stick it somewhere, small footprint, you know what I mean? Just for like, because puppies make people happy. Or kittens, I don't know. So anyway,
Yes.
I didn't mean to take over, but I just wanted to get those out, real quick for you.
Those ideas are all good and we're wide open, you know, to utilize.
Well, those I don't think we would have to put out a call, would we?
We don't really have to put out a call for anything.
Okay.
If we know, bless you, if we know there's an artist out there we want to work with,
Right.
again, the statute says, we don't
We
have
can
to
do
do
it.
the whole bid process. So
Yeah.
we're exempt
What we
from
need
that.
is a place to put.
We're like, we need to decide, you know, what, where, and who, and then we can work directly with that artist, like we're working with Havoc Studios for the turtle sculptures. So it's just kind of finding, you know, filling in all those blanks.
So
What
if
do we
they're-
want, where, and who do we want to do it? And
If,
then working with them.
if everybody liked, like, say, the Jack's Beach, the South Beach, the pink one there, that's the letters. And they liked it as well, you could put out a call to, would you look for an artist that has done something similar, or would you reach out to the University of North Florida, Jenny Hager, and say, can you guys do this, or how would you do that?
I mean, really and truly, we could just go through, again, that pool of sculpture
Say,
canvases
somebody
in
that's
their
close to
portfolio.
that, and say, could you do
If
that?
there's a certain style, or if
Yeah.
there was a certain theme that stuck
Yeah.
out to you guys that you liked, and go back and look and say, we really, you know, like this person,
Yeah.
let's see if they'd be interested in working with us to do something maybe similar, the same style, or the same theme.
Yep.
And work with them and see if you can kind of negotiate for an art
Perfect.
project.
Yeah.
I mean, it really can be as easy as that. But now that we've done 2 calls, 3, 2 for murals and 1 for sculpture, I mean, we have an incredible pool of artists that we can
Yeah.
go back and pull from.
Yeah.
Maybe never do another call, that's unrealistic, because, you know, stuff like the pier maybe needs to have a little bit more structural
Yeah.
thought into it
Sure.
because of the location and more pedestrian traffic and things like that, but we have flexibility, that's the fun part about art.
On something like the water tower, what would we have to do on that?
You have to get a call letter.
I don't want to go there. Come see me after the meeting, and
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
tell you the history, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's, probably
We'll
more
save that
challenging
for,
than anything
on
else.
the record.
That's not gonna work.
No, but, probably not. I don't think we want to open that can right now. But we did talk about doing some beautification in the South District. I know we've been focusing on downtown, but,
Yeah.
we've been talking about doing some murals at the entrance, maybe where, you know, Marsh Landing, where you get off of Butler, or coming into the South Jacks Beach, or really anywhere down there. The trick is working with DOT, because a lot of the places we could put a mural are in their right of way or part of their bridge structure.
But
Not
couldn't we paint-
impossible.
Couldn't we paint the underside of the underpass,
Yes.
the end of Butler?
We can. We can. And we've already talked to them about it, and they're on board with it. There's just a process we have to go through. There's a couple forms we have to fill out and get approval and.
And
So it is something that we can do if we want to. We
Yeah.
just need to plan for it in the budget. You know, we're
And
doing a
the
lot of
plan.
beautification and the
Yeah.
plan. We would have to update the South End plan.
You
Well, I
just
did
take
add that
one of
caveat
those
when we updated last time.
images,
We
like
may have to
people
update
walking on
the
the
South End
beach,
plan. It's not impossible.
put it under the overpass.
Under the overpass, right?
People walking on the beach or playing on the beach,
Yeah.
so
Right.
if
Or
you come
even-
under the overpass, they see.
I don't know if you guys have ever tried to walk to the Publix Target Plaza. It is a little sketchy.
It's not safe.
It's not safe. I have.
No, it's
Hold
not.
your breath the whole time you cross the street.
Yeah.
Because everyone's just flying through that intersection, but these, we don't have any printed out pictures, but the art crosswalks, they're so visual, even on my street where I live, they just did the lines all the way around the intersection where I live, and it has slowed cars down, just the lines. And so art, it really, I mean, it takes people's eyes,
this is going, the potential for it to,
Well, that article, the article in the Summons.
we need to spend every last penny of our budget doing
There is
that.
an actual return.
Right, so with what we're talking about so far, we've barely put it in.
I know.
Budget for
We,
2025.
we have a robust budget, and we should use every penny of it to get it out there. You know,
Because as we
people
talked
will
about,
notice, man, it's like you said,
What is the yearly budget?
we're the hub.
it
We're where they're coming.
it enriches the area.
From Thursday, from the meeting last Thursday, this is where everybody's coming.
Yeah,
I mean, ask
No.
Jacksonville Rose, Novelty, all those places. This is where
yeah,
You're like the
I was gonna say,
Hands
it's not
on.
even because
Well, we
we're
can-
in our meeting
we
here.
can bring that culture into it. And in 50, 75 years, when we're no longer there, there'll be a culture that's like almost accepted publicly that this is how it is now. It'll thrive.
so they're creating these spaces.
I agree, man. We need to, get it out there, no matter how we can, just get it out there. Big, small, and in between.
Absolutely.
What is our yearly budget?
I thought it was 750.
What's our yearly, what's our budget for 2025?
It was 300,000.
600.
So we had but we can take money we didn't spend this year and we can roll that forward. So we did kind of figure, I know there was a gray area in there with what we were doing. And like perfect example, if we don't get to something, like I know the bathroom bills, if the year gets away from us and we're not able to get to those, but we know we're gonna allocate X amount of dollars to each mural, I can go ahead and have that, issue that for a purchase order number, and then that money is already encumbered and it automatically rolls on top of what we already have for next year.
So,
There's a little bit of a process.
so we have to encumber this year's funds for those forward.
Yeah,
And then next year's funds are 300,000.
yeah.
Yeah, no, we need to get busy, man. You know, I feel it, man. We could,
So that's why we did that.
there's
We
nothing
can get started on these things pretty much as soon as they give us the go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's nothing like this that's ever happened here.
This one too, I told you guys.
Yeah.
Well, they had to get $2,500 for the design. Right?
Yeah.
So when are they doing it?
Okay, that's a great.
Little update on that, because it was a contract, that has to go through council. For council to look at any contract, it has to go through legal. We did not have a city attorney for like a few months. Our city attorney reviewed it, had some feedback, we got that feedback back to Havoc, they agreed to everything that the city attorney added. They signed it, and it is on the May council agenda for council to approve us to execute that contract. So as soon as council gives us the green light, they're ready to get started. It's just one of those things that, there's a process, and to get on a council agenda, we have to have something approved like almost 4 weeks out, and so even though it was approved this month, we still couldn't get on the agenda, but it is on the council agenda in May, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they have some preliminary stuff for our sizes or something they probably have already worked on, something
Yeah.
knowing that.
I've kept a very open line of communication with them. I didn't want them to think they were in the dark, and kind of explained, look, it's not, the delay is not because we want it to be delayed, here's where we're at, this is what we're dealing with. So they're very aware that we will move forward with them. So I
Is
have,
it gonna be like the stainless sculpture?
I don't know, they've been very, quiet about exactly what it will be,
Right.
but I anticipate as soon as I get the mayor's signature on that document, it will be very quick that we will get stuff back from them.
They probably have some ideas.
Oh, yeah,
Direction to go, are we doing three-dimensional, are we doing on a flat?
yep,
This is about size, it's gonna be within, I don't know.
yep.
Materials.
$1,000 each or something.
Yep, yeah, absolutely, and, it's one of those things too, we kinda have to be, I hate to say we have to be careful, because that sounds so bad, but we do have to be a little cautious, because we like to make sure, I don't wanna have any conversations too far in advance. You know, I don't want to break any statutes, any rules, and so I haven't really dove too deep into those details with them, but I do have a very strong gut feeling that, like I said, once that contract is fully executed, they're ready to go. That's what my gut tells me anyway.
Then we wanna do some more sea life sculptures.
Absolutely. So once we do that and we get that inaugural turtle, our lovely sea turtle, the number 2 in our survey, oh gosh, I know I should remember it, I don't. I think it was fish. I know sharks were number 3. But so the plan was to take, I was really excited about that one. But the plan,
There's
it was,
turtles, then dolphins,
thank you.
then fish, then sharks.
No, I forgot about dolphins. So sharks is
Well, maybe sharks
What's
and
that,
fish.
turtles?
the dolphins.
Dolphins, turtles and dolphins and sharks?
No, then fish.
I don't want a shark too.
I would like a shark and an octopus personally, but that's just me. But so afterwards, then yes, in theory would be okay. You know, we unveil the sea life in the city. Again, it'll be a big public outreach, public involvement, public engagement, and you know, I know we had talked about before. We don't want these sea turtles. We want them to be, you know, lifelike as far as the design and how they look. But we want them to be bright colors and vibrant and you know, really unique and kind of tell a story. And that was kind of how the theme of each of these sea life statues was supposed to be. So I would think once we get Havoc, their contract signed, we go through the design, we approve the design, we you know, pay them and get the agreement for the actual sculpture, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to then immediately start working on our first dolphin and get a dolphin in as well before the end of this year.
Why don't we just get straight to sharks?
And then we need,
I would love that, but I don't know that the public would, because they would. And I will say for our surveys, we don't typically get a ton of responses. Like we get there was a time where it would be great if we got like 30. We got several hundred on this, which for city surveys going out, that was a big deal. Like we never get responses, good or bad. We never get that much feedback. So the public really was excited to provide input. And we got a lot of write-ins. Like a lot of people wrote, like how we had one blank line, we got a ton of write-ins on what they could vote on. So the public was really engaged. So I think, like I said, once that contract is done and we get through the design process and we're getting ready to fabricate and install this, we will work with our communications manager and really start putting communications out, reminding people of where this came from, why we're doing it, how the public was involved, and then again, plan some type of an unveiling to bring our first turtle to life.
Right,
so
and
that should be on our 2025.
I don't even know that it'll be that long because I think that'll be this fiscal year. I think the turtle will be 24. I think the dolphins could probably be encumbered in 24.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
But we're gonna wanna do some in 25.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah.
Keep going on
In
the
terms
list.
of our.
Yeah, so we'll do some fish.
Why not?
Yeah, no, that's.
Some fish and a shark. We're getting a shark somewhere.
We can bump the shark up.
Like, it's the beach. I know it's not, it doesn't have to be like Jaws, it doesn't have to scare people, but we gotta have a shark.
Sharky shark and like swim trunks and stuff like that.
Yeah, we gotta have a shark.
Gotta have a shark.
Gotta have something.
Just say the shark ate the fish and the shark moved up.
No,
No, you can do that.
it's
The
true,
shark
that is
moves up.
true.
It's
Oh, and
eugenics stuff.
before I forget, while I was sitting here, so I apologize that I kind of disconnected for a moment. I was having some serious issues with the stream and I was trying to fix that. But the Lakeland Plaza stuff, we are kind of still working through that design. In fact, I just got some updates today. That is on a council agenda at a briefing to talk to council about, to kind of finally see if we've blended the best of both worlds like we were tasked with. Hopefully they like it. And we have been, but there are still several elements to that will come to you guys for recommendation and input. For example, the shade structures are big, like metal shade structures, but they look like giant beach umbrellas. The tables, we don't want just boring tables and chairs, we want something unique and colorful and fun. It calls out for several actual sculptures, and then it also calls out for the kind of ground level sea creatures that are statues, but they're able for people to sit on, take pictures with, kids to play on in lieu of a true play structure. So there will be several elements to Lakeland Plaza. Once council gives us the green light, that will then come back to you guys as well, and then we will dive back into this pool of sculpture artists on who can do those kind of ground structures. And if I remember, there were several that had those type of things in their portfolio. And actually these umbrella-looking shade structures, that idea stemmed from a portfolio we had seen somewhere else, that someone had done that work, so.
We're definitely gonna continue that sea life theme
Oh,
right
yeah.
on through. Here we are.
Yeah, I mean, all the little statues in Latham Plaza, at least the ground level ones, will be sea creatures. I mean, again, this got shot down. I wanted like a kraken, like some type of a sea monster, you know, our version, like we can do like our own Nessie, like, but that got shot down. I have to keep them to real monsters.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
Is there any place for just unspecified or?
Yes.
It seems
You
to
know,
me like
yeah.
Latham Plaza or adjacent to it would be a perfect location for a Jack's Beach.
Like the octopus,
yeah.
the octopus that took over
You know,
Jack's Beach, yeah.
because,
I would love an octopus with his tentacles, like, I think people love it, but, yes, there are several places called out that in Latham Plaza, they just show kind of a monolithic blank structure right now, but those are called out for places for other pieces to go as well.
right, 'cause something like that, you really want an area where people can
Gather.
Yeah,
get around it.
yeah,
Yeah,
Take
I like
some
that.
back, take a photo.
yep,
yeah.
yeah, we're gonna relocate, what is she called, Dawn Patrol? Is that what that's called? She's gonna get relocated, her and her friend in the surfboard, so we're not doing away with them, they're just gonna get moved.
Oh, yeah, you can't do it.
What about?
We're gonna move them right there to that corner, I'm just kidding. They're not coming in the building.
In city parks.
Moondog and Muddy.
Yeah, we already have some sculptures down at Oceanfront Park. There's
That's
some of
right.
those,
That's,
like she mentioned, the
The ground.
semi ground, the concrete sculptures, and then we have the dolphin with the boy.
yeah.
But it's in the downtown district, so we feel like if we want to put more art down there, we can. I mean, we have the bike racks, the dolphin bike racks too, down there. So there's already some art, but.
Yep.
Yeah, those are good spots. Kids gather, play.
Yeah, anything down there
Happiness.
needs to be something that kids can touch and climb on.
Yes.
There are always groups of kids down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess really, you know, at this point, we wanted to kind of make sure that we were going on the right track. We are very deep within the budget process. We're working on our CIPs, we're planning things out, and so that's kind of why this meeting, we really wanted to just really focus on fiscal year 25, because obviously, even though that doesn't start till October 1st, we have to have that planned out well in advance. The council budget showcase starts over the summer, so we literally meet next week to go over our CIPs. So the timing of this worked really well, so we can make sure we kind of identified some goals.
Only other thing I had on my list was the Beach Boulevard median,
Okay,
that strip there. Maybe that's where
Oh, yeah,
your
that's right, yeah.
Kraken goes.
okay,
That was kinda
somewhere.
cool, coming up and out of the bushes there.
That's actually really cool.
I love that
I
idea.
know.
In the historical museum, the lights are
You
out.
say like right there along and buy sneakers, right?
Yeah.
It comes between Second and First, there's a whole median there.
Yeah, those are getting
Oh, yeah,
redone.
okay.
They send you a
We're redoing that sign.
Are you?
Yeah, the
They're
lights
in
are out,
the
the,
plan.
in the thing.
It's real
Yeah,
real
that is
messed
a
up.
corridor in the plan, you're right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we just have to be mindful of anything we feel we think people are gonna wanna take pictures with, if they can access it safely. So we just have to think about that kind of stuff, you know, we don't want people jumping across the street to take pictures
Yeah,
of
like
crackheads,
this.
they're gonna get hit by a car.
Well, I mean, if we put a, highlight piece of it down near the crosswalk.
Right, that, yeah,
Like if you
that's
did
exactly
Kraken
right,
and its face was down near the crosswalk. then-
right, I love that idea.
I do too.
And maybe try to think of the September, like the Fin Fest, or maybe even closer to Deck the Chairs, try to paint some crosswalks. You know, where we could maybe get a school, or maybe get like Heartspace or somebody that does a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
The painting crosswalks to be something that, like you said, you gotta do it in the fall,
I agree.
or we gotta do it in April, not in July and all this, that.
Yeah.
Like a Sea Sky Spectacular,
Yeah.
you know, and paint a few crosswalks or something that did, you know.
That's the really fun thing about the crosswalk art is
meeting. Excellent meeting.
That's all I have, and I think I've got some really good direction on not only our budget and CIP process, but for our next meeting, I will get to work on pulling together portfolios and different artists, from those sculptures, so we can kind of start brainstorming and diving into parameters we want to put on the pier piece. I will also go out there and, like I said, I'll work with our police and fire and figure out exactly how much space we need that we can still accommodate emergency vehicles, and identify not only locations on the boardwalk side, but maybe even parking lot side and that turnaround area. And then I'll also check on painting, not the actual area of the Beach Boulevard, dead end, but the center area of that roundabout.
Right, 'cause that is just block, I think it's not like
Exactly.
pavers.
Yeah,
And the next meeting will be May fifteenth,
I was just gonna ask,
that,
16th.
hold on, that sounds right-ish. 16,
maybe I could punch it in correctly this time.
it's okay.
16?
May 16th.
16.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say this for the record, so if our communications manager is listening, I have told him several times I would like for him to attend one of these meetings because he is the gatekeeper of our brand standards manual. And so all of our colors and brand standards and fonts and logos, that's sort of his wheelhouse. And so, Heather won't be here at the May meeting, but maybe that's a good meeting for our communications manager to come and just kind of talk with you guys, maybe do a very brief overview of what our brand standards are. Because I know I can do that, that's just not my wheelhouse. That's, you know, he is the keeper of the book of the brand. So I will see if I can get him to come down and do that briefly as well.
I hope he was listening to that. I know, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So those are possibilities?
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I love this.
I do too, I love that.
I mean, 'cause I jokingly call South Jack's Beach Soapy all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I just made that up and it's not catching on. Maybe if we put a sign out,
Yeah,
it'll
maybe we'll
stick.
put it out there, 'cause